Hi, I'm Tina Ortiz, and I've been a photographer and makeup artist and digital marketing specialist for over 30 years. I must have started when I was 9 years old. Probably not. I started out my professional career in San Diego, California. I was a makeup artist and photographer's assistant for 2 years and eventually worked myself up to becoming a makeup artist instructor at the San Diego Makeup Institute. And then I went on to work for several local San Diego photographers as well as LA photographers before branching out on my own. Since then, I've shot thousands of weddings, fashion shoots, and portraits. I've taught 5 photographers who now have a global successful careers of their own. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this video is I'm always hearing, I really want to be a photographer, but I'm not sure how to start, or I can't afford it, or I have kids and a job. But I'm here to tell you that I've had every single reason not to be a photographer too. I was a single mom. I worked 2 part-time jobs. I had no car. I had no fancy gear, you name it. Yet I was able to transition into being a successful photographer, so you can too. Quick disclaimer. This video is about my life experience and may not work for anyone. I'm not giving any advice other than my little opinion on how I did it. Also, my tips and advice are for DSLR or mirrorless cameras, not smartphones. Yes, some of these tips will work for smartphones, but I'm going to be talking to people who want to shoot with semi-professional or pro cameras. Uh, it's more like the photographer who's already an established photographer taking pictures, I guess, not just clicking with your smartphone and trying to get better iPhone pictures. That's something completely different. I will also be discussing digital marketing and photography in depth in some of my other presentations, so be sure you click and subscribe and you'll get a notice when the video premieres. Also, click the thumbs up if you like these videos and want to see more. Um, One of the things I wanted to say also is, in my quick disclaimer, this is all of my gear, and these are all of my photography, all of my photos. So everything that you see is mine. I'm not sponsored. I didn't purchase anything. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be broken up into several categories later in other videos. So if you want like street style photography, makeup for photography, men's makeup for photography, and how to get started in fashion photography. Those are all topics that I will have in other videos. So let's get started right away so we can get you to becoming a photographer today. Number one, if you already have a pro or semi-pro camera, take it out, charge it up, see if you need extra batteries, make sure you have new memory cards, and new means 1 to 2 years old, and put all your gear into a proper camera bag. This is going to help you feel more professional right away. Going forward, number two, you're going to stop defending your camera and gear. Mostly the brand, but when I say just stop defending what you have, there's a belief out there that you have to have what's new. You have to have the best. You have to have mirrorless. You have to have video and microphone attached. You have to have a vlogger camera. Let me tell you, what you have is your camera, and what you're working with is fine. When I started my career, I had a heavy glass Pentax that was already 10 years old when I started, and this was 1994. So there was a trend to use 120 film and Polaroids at the time, and my camera looked ancient even then. A lot of photographers were making fun of me. They were joking that all I could do was vintage black and white. But even when digital came out, I was still using film in my Pentax because I liked the way it shot. So later when I transitioned into digital, long story short, I had to transition to digital because I wasn't getting the same quality in the return of my images. But when the curve started to go back to hybrid photography, it was okay because I was still using film on the side. Later, including in some of these images too, I shot these with some of my Rebels because that's my favorite camera. It was one of my favorite for travel, and I'll talk about that later. But like I said, my gear is not sponsored. This is actually just my gear. So number three, the three way to become a photographer today, make sure you have all the gear that you need. You do not have to purchase new. You do not have to purchase a lot. But if you want to break into professional photography with paying clients, you do need to have backup gear. So if you were thinking on investing in a new camera anyway, now's the time. Your new camera would become your primary camera, and your older gear would become your backup gear and you can replace that. And just to let you know also, I always have a backup camera that is very similar to my primary camera because it has to be 100% predictable. If something stops working, I can literally jump in and not change the formats, if that makes sense. It's okay. I'll discuss it in another video. Number 4 is about the shooting format, or they call it film media. If you're shooting film, I would encourage you to go out and buy a lot of ISOs, different brands, so you can experiment and find out what you really like. Not all film is the same. And this even goes the same for within color and black and white film. So if you're going to use film, use the one that ends up working for you the best, not what you're reading, what everybody else uses. Also, if you're going to use digital, same thing. You're going to figure out if you are going to shoot in RAW or JPEG. That's on you. There are enough videos out there that can help you pick why you want JPEG, why you want RAW, or why you want both. But choose the format that you want to shoot in, and let there be no more discussion about it. You don't have to discuss this with your clients. You don't have to discuss this with colleagues. Number 5. If you are a photographer that hasn't been booked by a client or hasn't been paid for work before, are you still a photographer? Yes. This is where a lot of people lose the drive to call themselves a photographer or to pretend they're not professional. But if you think about all the hard work, free photo sessions and prints and images that you've done up until the point of getting paid, it's a learning process, and you have to accept that you are a photographer before anyone else does. And it sounds a little existential, but it's true. And also, there's some really good photographers out there that only shoot for themselves. And this means they're not advertising, they're not selling their artwork. They love photography so much that they're okay with just being a photographer on their own. So some of these photographers may have been a wedding photographer, portrait photographer, sports photographer. Something happened that they don't want to sell anymore, or it could just be that they really enjoy doing photography for themselves on the weekend. Quick story, I know a landscape photographer who started out just doing rental properties. He was, as soon as they staged the property, he would go in and take photographs of the area for them. And he saw on the walls that these people had really awesome artwork. And the artwork was literally like AI or robot produced. And he kept thinking, why would you have a beautiful staging property and not put in beautiful photographs? And from there, the long story short, he ended up selling them his landscapes of Florida. And this guy went from taking 360 pictures of rentals to beautiful, 5 feet by 7 foot black and white photos of the Florida landscape. So I was just going to say that, you are still doing photography. You're still a professional if you're doing that kind of work. Number 6, you're almost there. Can you be a photographer while you work a 9-to-5 job? And the answer is yes, you can. A lot of photographers, especially wedding photographers, work a 9 to 5 job so that they have a steady paycheck and insurance, things like that. Just because you're a teacher or a lawyer or a landscaper doesn't mean you're not a legitimate photographer. They used to call us weekend warriors, and that had a really bad connotation to it. But they tried to imply that we weren't dedicated to the craft. But I can tell you that the images that are taken on a Saturday afternoon can be very, provocative and award winning. It doesn't really matter when you took that photo. Um, this One of my photos from Haiti in Dominican Republic that I like to show right here. It's award winning. I actually took this in the car on the way to a New Year's Eve party. Go figure. Which brings me to number 7. Get out of your own way. What this means is start calling yourself a photographer. Start admitting that you love taking photos. And it's nobody's business whether you're being paid or not. So it's kind of like a little existential. I say back to the beginning. You love taking photos of pets and trees, your kids, your neighbor's house, downtown, all these things that you're already shooting. Whether or not people are paying you for these, you are already a photographer. So what you need to do is literally today start calling yourself a photographer, get a business card, get a website. That's a whole different video, but get a website to show your progress and your growth and your actual product and services, because I have confidence in you.